Welcome back, guys. I trust you've been staying safe. Now, today's true crime story is one of the very crazy ones, and it's coming to you from a town called Fiyiase in Atonsu of the Ashanti region of Ghana in West Africa. And it involves a driver, or let me say, a cab hailing service driver. The cab hailing service is called Bolt, and the driver's name, the unfortunate victim, is Israel Ajay. Israel doubles as a teacher, and he's doing this work just so he would increase his fortunes to feed his family and himself and get by. That was an honorable thing to do. But on this fateful day in 2021, Israel would pick a ride but would never come back from that ride again. This is the true crime story of how this Bolt taxi hailing service driver answered a call hailing his ride but never made it back after picking that ride. If you are ready for this true crime story, please just buckle up and let's go. On the 4th of July 2021, the headless body of a man was found in an uncompleted building at Fiyiase near Atonsu in the Ashanti region of Ghana. A few meters from this location was a stream, and just by that stream, a head without a body was also found. It was clear that this head had been decapitated off of the body that had been found at the uncompleted building site. The police were brought in to investigate, and as investigations unfolded, it was clear that this head was linked to this headless body. The police were able to narrow it down, and well-meaning citizens were also able to identify this person as Israel Ajay, who would later come to also be identified further as a headmaster of a local school in the vicinity. Now, this begged the question, what was this headmaster doing in this bush, in this uncompleted building? And even the bigger question, how come he has literally lost his head and his head has ended up at the stream and his body in the uncompleted building? And the biggest question, who did this and why did the person did this? The clock was ticking. Now, investigations proceeded. They also found that there was a Toyota Vitz vehicle parked nearby to the site of this heinous scene. The police conveyed the body to the mortuary, including the head, and investigations continued. A few days later, a suspect came up in the person of one Rashid Ibrahim, a 32-year-old man who was arrested on the immediate Sunday but denied having anything to do with the crime. According to him, he didn't even know Israel, and he had no reason to have had any dealing with him, not to talk of even being present at that uncompleted site. But investigations continued, and the breakthrough came when police were able to establish that the victim was not just the headmaster of that school, but also doubled as a part-time ride-hailing cab driver. So here in Ghana, there are several cab-hailing services, and one of them is called Bolt. And this head teacher, in order to get by, was also multitasking as a driver for this ride-hailing app. So he does his head teacher job as full-time, and then he does his driving job as part-time. The police were able to establish through the app of that ride-hailing services that the suspect actually was the last person who hailed the ride of the victim, Israel Ajay. This was very critical because it put him at the crime scene because the vehicle he uses for the ride hailing service was also at the crime scene. And it is clear that he didn't complete the trip that the suspect had booked him on. This was still not easy for the suspect to confess to because he kept being adamant about his innocence, but at a point rather admitted that, okay, yeah, he hailed the guy's cab, but then he didn't do anything to him. Upon more pressure from the police, he broke and actually indicated that, yes, he hailed the cab service, and when Israel picked his trip and came, he told him that he is going to this particular location where this uncompleted house is. So he drove him there, and this is a very bushy area. It's yet to be fully developed for a lot of residents to move in. So you have single spots and clusters of settlers there. So it seems a bit deserted and could suffice as a very suitable crime location. And for Rashid, the suspect, this was the perfect spot for him to perform his dastardly act. So according to his confession, he directed Israel, the victim, to drive to that site, and all this while, little did Israel know that Rashid had concealed a machete in his attire whilst he was with him in the vehicle. So he was being professional about his ride, sitting at the front seat at the driver's side driving, and Rashid was behind him at the back seat. Now, Rashid indicated that when they got to that site, he encouraged him to go further into the bush, and the driver obliged. At a point where he felt that, okay, this was perfect, he told him that he could park here, but then he still needed his help, and that the driver should alight from his vehicle and then accompany him to fetch some speakers, which are very heavy for him to handle alone, so that he would bring the speakers to the car and then they drive back to town. But little did the driver know that this was the plot to get him to the killing zone, so to speak. So he alighted from his vehicle and they set off, going deeper into this bushy area. At a point, Rashid, knowing very well the evil he has planned for this driver, started falling back, such that Israel came to be ahead of him. And the question is, not to blame the victim though, but the question is, you never do that. As a ride-hailing cab driver, you don't even get up, leave your vehicle and walk further for a trip. You be in your vehicle, and even if the location is suspicious, you reject the trip outright. But hey, we are talking about this in hindsight after all this has happened. And more so, you don't need to be ahead, going to a place that you don't even know because you've never been there, and it's a bushy area, and somebody you don't know is all alone with you and he is walking behind you. But this set it up perfectly for Rashid to execute his evil plot, because before the victim, Israel, could realize, Rashid had now secretly taking out the machete and started slashing him from behind. He kept inflicting these machete wounds on him to the point that Israel fell and he succumbed to his injuries. And at this point, Rashid decapitated him and took his head. Unfortunately for Rashid, but too late for Israel, there was a nearby resident who heard a loud cry and raised an alarm, and she indicated that she saw Rashid running from the scene. And indeed, Rashid had even gone on to drop the head of Israel in his attempt to flee the scene. Now, this set it up perfectly for Rashid to be identified when he was picked up by the police. So not only did the police have the app to link him to the whereabouts of Israel, but they also had a witness who had saw him And later, Rashid is now confessing. Now, according to him, when he chopped off the head, he had a lot of blood in his dress. So he went to a nearby water pool of a sort, which some masons used to build houses there, and he washed off the blood. And then when he was about to convey the head away from the crime scene, that was when the alarm was raised, and he realized that the first priority to him is to first flee and survive before he ends up being caught. And thus, this was the end of Israel Ajemenu, a hardworking young man who just decided that to make ends meet, he was going to take up a second job to earn some money for his family. How traumatizing. So sad. And I keep asking myself, how do these people sleep at night? How did Rashid sleep at night, knowing very well he was going to wake up that morning and go and do this to somebody? So he was asked why he would do such a thing, what his motive was. And according to him, he did this because some people had promised him that they will make him very rich if he could provide them with the head of a human being. So in effect, he was going to use the victim's head for money rituals. And if you are watching us from outside of Africa and you don't know about this, let me just take a second to educate you. Here in Africa, this is a big deal. Money rituals is a big deal. It comes in various forms, one of which is the type that requires the presentation of a human head to a fetish priest, or let me say some fetish priests. It is against the law, but still, some way, somehow, people think that that is the way to go. And the funny thing is, they will not take their own heads because obviously they will die, but they will rather decide that they are going to take someone else's head, and they go about different ways of achieving that. So the case was thus solved, and the police took Rashid into custody, especially based on his own confession. Rashid would later take the police to the crime scene and reenact how he went about the whole thing, from the point of they getting out of the vehicle through to how he was able to lean back and attack the victim, execute him, butcher him, and what he did afterwards. Now, to my 2 cents, this is so unfortunate. We are all looking to do well in life, but I don't think that it's worth it if this is how you have to achieve it. It's just so unfortunate. And also, like I've been saying, I think that it's good that we all adopt some level of paranoia. It keeps your instincts sharp. Somebody would argue against that, but I know that at least it keeps you alive for that matter. It's unfortunate. Let's keep an eye out. If you're a ride-hailing cab driver, don't get out of your vehicle to walk anywhere with your so-called passenger. Think that sometimes people are too trusting. You shouldn't forget that you don't know this person from Adam. You don't know this person from anywhere. You just met him by virtue of the fact that he has subscribed to your service. And you have no idea who this person is, whether this person is a psychopath, this person is a serial killer. You have no idea. So keep your security protocols in place. And I'm hoping and actually praying that these things are also taught to these drivers before they are signed on by the various cab hailing services. Leave your comments in the comment section. But for us at True Crimes Cafe, we wish the family of the deceased the strength to carry on. He has since been buried and the trial is ongoing to bring some justice to him and his family. Until we come your way next time, like I always say, stay safe out there and keep an eye out.